So one of the ways that we can create animated flocking systems is, as we've covered in class, is to have a walk cycle or a swim cycle or a fly cycle or something like that. So in this case, we have this very simple geometric fish with a very simple bone rig. I didn't even bother making controls for this because it was so simple. And as we play through this, we can see as we get all the way to the end, it just loops back and forth. So we have a swim cycle. And so what we want to do is, when we're creating a flocking system, is to create, there's 65 frames here. So we want to create a duplicate fish for each one of those frames. So wherever frame 30 is at, we want a geometric reference. We want this geometry for frame 30, and so on for each one of these frames. And then when we set up our instancer, we can loop through all those geometric pieces. Okay, so we could go through and do this manually, right? We select fish and we duplicate. So we could go up to edit and down to duplicate, or we can hit Control D, right? Then we'd have to reselect the fish, step forward, Control D. Reselect the fish, step forward, Control D. Reselect the fish, step forward, Control D. Okay, so you can see how that could take a while, and isn't the easiest way to go about it. So if we want to write a script for this, a for loop would be a really good way to go about this. So let's look at how a for loop is structured. So we start off by typing for, and then we're going to have 3 references to our variable I, and this just provides us to wait to step forward through the frame. So variable I is going to start off right at 1. Frame 1 is 1, so that's where we're going to start. Okay, and we're going to do variable I is, as it steps forward, we never want it to go above 65. So we're going to set this to be less than 66. So variable I can always exist up through 65, but once it's 66, 66 is not less than 66, it's actually equal to, therefore it cannot continue past that. Okay, so we're going to put another semicolon, and then we're going to do variable I again, and we're going to type plus plus. And so what that means is variable I is going to start at 1, it's always going to be less than 66, so it can only be up to 65, and it's going to step forward or add 1 to itself. So as we loop through, it's going to start at 1, we're going to go through this, and it's going to add another 1 to that, and so variable I will be 2. And then it runs through this again, plus plus, and then variable I is 3, and so forth. So, yeah, so let's go ahead and close those parentheses. And so what we want to do is create an open and bracket to loop along with our code. So we're going to create this open bracket. And I just hit enter and it created an end bracket, which is great. So now anything inside these 2 brackets is going to be looped through 65 times. So the first thing we want to do, just like we did a minute ago, right, is we want to select our fish, right? So if we just type select and do flag R, so this is always going to replace, no matter what's selected, it's going to always replace it with fish. Okay, so we'll always start off each time through the loop with our fish geometry that is rigged and animated. We're always going to start off with it being selected. Okay, and then we want to duplicate that. So every time through, we'll make a duplicate copy. Okay, and then lastly, we want to play step button forward. And so we're always going to, or play button step forward. There we go. Got that a little backwards. So play button step forward. Okay. So what this is going to do, loop through this 65 times. It's always going to select that fish. It's going to duplicate it. And then here it's going to step forward by 1 frame. And then come back to frame 2. Reselect that fish, duplicate it, and then step forward to frame 3, and so on until we get to frame 65. So let's watch that in action. So if we highlight all of this, if we click this little play button, it'll run this code without making it go away. And so if we watch this, we'll see what happens. All right, and as you can see there, we have 65 fish, and each geometric reference represents a frame. So this is frame 1. Fish 1 is frame 1. Fish 30 is frame 30. Fish 60 is frame 60, and so forth. So anyways, I hope that it has been helpful.